Hello and welcome back to the Rekt Capital channel, and welcome to today's video update on Bitcoin and the market leaders. We're going to be looking at Ethereum and Litecoin as well. I hope you had a fantastic day and of course happy holidays. So let's focus here on the short term. In my recent tweet on Twitter, I was talking about how Bitcoin needed to find price strength confirmation on the top of this ascending triangle. This orange ascending triangle, and a relief rally was going to be likely as long as Bitcoin pressed past this red supply zone over here, and that relief rally would be likely to reach this level over here, which is 7,200. And as you guys know, as we've been speaking here on the channel, 7,200 is the 2-year moving average, which is a very important reference point for price. So a return to the low 7,000s was possible should this red area be breached, and of course that's exactly what we got. We got that relief rally to 7,200 and a rejection from there, and ultimately a daily close below this supply zone. So this supply zone is going to be weighing down on price, and we're already seeing that in the form of a sell side candle. So this supply zone is going to be weighing down on price, and it's going to be a significant weight which may force a breakdown past the top of this ascending triangle. So that's the short term. That's what I'm looking for in the short term, because of course theoretically you could argue that this is a retest attempt post breakout. So this is the breakout from the ascending triangle. This is the retest attempt which we got in the form of that relief rally to the low 7,000s. But that was a very low volume rally, a low volume relief rally, and now we're returning to this level here, and it's struggling. It's already struggling here. Bitcoin's price already is struggling over here, so we just need to watch out for that confirmed breakdown from this level. That's the short term for Bitcoin. What I want to focus on particularly is the long term aspect. I want to look at the long term perspective for Bitcoin, because this is a perspective that I've been talking about and you guys are very familiar with at this point. This is a level that I marked out in one of my recent videos, 7,200, and it is the 2-year moving average. And if we just look at the weekly time frame over here, we can notice that it is a form of rejection for price every time Bitcoin's recovered into this key level. This is a rejection which we've seen before continuation in the uptrend. So here we saw a failed retest attempt of this 7,200 level as a support, and then we got that rejection and that downside to the green area. Over here, a picture perfect rejection from 7,200, and over here we actually got a prolonged area of price strength confirmation above 7,200, and then that's where we got that relief, that rally towards the upside. Right now we're at this level of 7,200 and it is figuring as a resistance, and for the past few weeks, this is something that we really need to stress. For the past few weeks we've seen 1 wick, 2 wicks, 3, 4 wicks into essentially 7,200, or at least the low 7,000s. And this is a very important thing to bear in mind, because these are FOMO wicks. Essentially speaking, this is where FOMOers are buying. So it's extreme euphoria, it's extreme psychology that's prompting people and motivating people to think that this is a good buying opportunity. So they're FOMOing, they fear missing out. So they're FOMOing essentially into a resistance, and these FOMOers are getting trapped in their positions. They're losing money. And sometimes when we see FOMO wicks into a resistance, that clears up a lot of sell side orders. So you could argue that there is a weakening of the sell side pressure, right? Because resistance is essentially sell side orders stacked together. So if we're seeing a lot of wicks just tapping into that liquidity, sell side orders are being filled because we're seeing more and more FOMO wicks, but those FOMO wicks aren't actually weakening the resistance. And we're seeing that in the form of this red candle over here, which essentially is showing to us that Bitcoin has rejected once again from 7,200. And that's something I was talking about in my video from last week, that this level, if we get a close below 7,200, that's probably going to confirm a rejection for Bitcoin. So we are getting that rejection for Bitcoin, and every time we've seen a rejection from the 7,200 level, the green area is an important reference point for price and a demand zone for potential investors in Bitcoin. This is around 5,750 to 6,200 level. So the week is young. This is still a very young candle. It is only Monday after all. This is a shooting star candle formation which tends to precede a bearish trend reversal, and at the moment we are seeing some initial signs to that. And should we see continuation and more downside, then this green area is the next one most likely that we can start to focus on. And it's all about the 2-year moving average. This is the indicator that we've been looking at together, and in the recent video I was talking about how this recent price action above the 2-year moving average was a little bit out of the ordinary, and because of that I was expecting, or at least open to, a fake out past this 2-year moving average. And indeed this is a fake out. This was a fake out, and now we're once again back in this area of outsized return, which is essentially the green area below the 2-year moving average. And we've seen these areas of outsized return before, and as you guys can tell, it takes a bit of time for Bitcoin to consolidate within this green area, within an area of outsized return, and we haven't been in our most recent area for a long time. It's only been a few weeks. But what I really want you guys to focus on is that this is an area of outsized return. We tend to forget about the fact that this is a very interesting spot for Bitcoin, because in the short term we're going to see a lot of fluctuation, but in fact if we think about the bigger picture, then we are in an area that offers outsized returns. At least this is what the indicator is telling us, that every time price is below the 2-year moving average, so in this case the 7,200 level, every time price is below that, that is an area of outsized return for Bitcoin investors. So it is a promising time, and the fact that another major low is possible for Bitcoin is a very positive thing, because who wouldn't want to accumulate in an area of outsized return once again at cheaper price levels? So that's about it for Bitcoin. Let's have a look at Ethereum here, a market leader as well. I'm just going to show you guys this ascending triangle and talk to you a bit about my recent article where I describe the movements that have already happened. So one of the most important things for Ethereum was to return into the ascending triangle on the weekly after briefly losing that market structure. So the past few weeks were all about returning to this ascending triangle and breaching the bottom of the ascending triangle and closing within this triangle. So this is exactly what we got. This was a very important thing for Ethereum, just to return to that market structure, and it did just that. And last week's price action marked that strong return and a very good technical price development for Ethereum's long-term performance, because after a return to that ascending triangle, which is a vital consolidation pattern that is setting itself up to precede a price breakout into a new bull market, an Ethereum bull market. So we are essentially at the bottom of this consolidation pattern for Ethereum. But like I said in the article from last week, Ethereum's price is at a diagonal resistance in the short term. So it's really important to look at how Ethereum closes relative to this blue diagonal, because if it closes above it, that would be bullish. But if it closes below it, and at that point in time it was below the diagonal resistance, a close below would lead to a price rejection. And this is essentially what we got, a rejection from the blue diagonal resistance, because we got a close. We also got a close below that, so now we're just pulling back to the bottom of the ascending triangle just to see this price strength confirmation right over here. And now that this rejection has occurred, it will allow investors to accumulate Ethereum at lower levels near the bottom of the ascending triangle. So this is essentially what I want to talk to you guys about, is that this is the bottom of the ascending triangle, and there are two trend lines that we need to focus on. This is trend line number 1, which essentially marks the candle bodies, the bottom of the candle bodies of this market structure, and at the moment we are seeing some support over here. But ultimately, if we just take into account the wicks of these candle bodies, then again we are at the bottom of the ascending triangle, and this is also another trend line that we need to focus on in terms of the bottom of this market structure. So these two trend lines are essentially the trend lines we need to see price strength confirmation for Ethereum, and as long as we get that, this market structure is going to be maintained and is still very much going to be in full effect. So these two trend lines are the ones I'm going to be watching for at the moment. So far so good in terms of price strength confirmation over here, but of course do not be surprised if we have a return to this trend line as well. So in any case, the bottom of the ascending triangle is something I'm watching for and is going to be of interest to me personally. And Litecoin, of course, another market leader and the last market leader we're going to be looking at in this video. And this is also a coin I covered in my recent article along with Link and Tezos. So if you missed that article, feel free to check it out because it still very much is relevant. Even though a few days have already passed, I spoke about what was going to happen, which has already happened, but also what I'm expecting in the next few days, which is roughly now. So still a very much relevant article. Litecoin right over here needs to flip this level, 40.8, so $40.80. It needs to flip this level into a new support. And the thing is, and this is something I was talking about in the article, we needed to have a weekly close above this level and a pullback into this support. So we got that weekly close and we got that pullback into the weekly support, and now we just need to have that price strength confirmation over here this week, so that we could see potential further upside next week. Because as you guys can see over here, we saw that weekly close over here above $40.80 and a pullback into this support, some wicking on the weekly time frame past this support as well, but ultimately consolidation and price strength confirmation above this support, and then we saw a rally towards the upside. And the same thing here, although this took much less time than the previous time, and we got a weekly close, a pullback into support, and then a trend continuation. So that's essentially something I'm going to be watching for again right over here. So all I'm just looking for right now is price strength confirmation at $40.80 this week, and as long as we get that, next week could be promising for Litecoin. And that's just about it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching today. Please consider dropping a like if you enjoyed the video, and of course subscribe for more videos like this in the future. I'm Rekt Capital and I'll speak to you in the next one. Speak soon.